I still remember that day like it just happened yesterday. The smell of the cafeteria, the chatter of coworkers, the way my hands trembled as I unpacked my little tiffin box. I never thought something as simple as bringing home made food could change the course of my entire life. But it did, because that was the day my boss humiliated me in front of everyone, and the billionaire sitting at the next table saw everything. Tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you have stayed quiet or done what I did later? Because what I did ended up shocking the entire company. I had been working at the company for 2 years. It was a big corporate firm, sleek glass walls, expensive coffee machines, and employees who looked like they were going to a fashion show instead of work. I was just an ordinary woman from a middle-class family. My clothes were simple, my bag was second-hand, and my lunch was always homemade. I didn't mind, I actually preferred it. My mom used to say that food made with love always tastes better than anything fancy. But apparently, not everyone agreed with that, especially my boss, MS. Veronica, a woman who wore diamonds to work, walked like she owned the building, and talked like everyone else was beneath her. She was the kind of boss who loved to remind you of your place. It was a Friday afternoon. Everyone was in the cafeteria. I sat at my usual corner table with my small lunchbox. I had made vegetable curry and rice that morning. The smell was warm and comforting, like home. I remember thinking, I just have to get through this day. But then, out of nowhere, I heard Veronica's voice, loud, sharp, and dripping with mockery. "Oh my God, is that smell coming from you, Amelia?" she said, wrinkling her nose. The entire cafeteria turned toward me. My spoon froze in midair. She walked closer, her heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. "You're seriously eating whatever that is. What is it? Leftovers from last week?" She laughed, and a few of my coworkers joined in. I felt my face burn. I wanted to disappear. I mumbled, "It's just home-made curry." She laughed louder. "Homemade, sweetheart. We're not in some cheap diner. This is a corporate office. Maybe try eating something a little more professional next time." Professional. I didn't even know food had a job description, but I stayed quiet, just staring down at my plate, pretending her words didn't sting. Inside, I felt this heavy lump in my chest, humiliation, anger, and sadness all tangled together. What I didn't realize at that moment was that someone was watching. At the next table, a man in a tailored black suit was sitting quietly, observing the whole thing. He didn't say a word, but his sharp eyes followed every moment. I thought he was just another executive from another department. I had no idea who he really was. After lunch, I went back to my desk, but the embarrassment clung to me like smoke. People kept whispering, glancing at me, smirking. My best friend at work, Nina, tried to comfort me. "Ignore her," she whispered. "She's just insecure." But ignoring Veronica was like ignoring a thunderstorm. She called me into her office later that day. "Amelia," she said, crossing her legs and leaning back. "We expect a certain image in this company. Maybe you should work on fitting in better." I wanted to scream, "I'm here to work, not walk a runway," but I didn't. I just nodded and walked out quietly. The following week, things got worse. She started making little comments in meetings. "Some people here still think home-made food is classy." Or maybe if some employees focused less on cooking and more on their jobs, they'd get promoted. Every jab hit me like a slap. I tried to tell HR, but they brushed it off. "She's just joking. Don't take it personally." One day, during another lunch break, I was sitting alone again, eating quietly. Then I saw him, the same man from last week, sitting at the same table, but this time he stood up and walked toward me. My heart started racing. He smiled gently and said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I sit here?" I nodded nervously. "I'm Daniel," he said, extending his hand. I shook it and introduced myself. "Amelia." He looked at my lunchbox and smiled. "That smells amazing. Did you make it yourself?" I nodded shyly. "Yeah, it's just a family recipe." He laughed softly. You should be proud of that. People underestimate the value of homemade things these days. We talked for a few minutes, and something about him felt calm, grounded, genuine, not like anyone else in that office. What I didn't know then was that Daniel wasn't just any man. He was the billionaire owner of our parent company, the man whose name was on the building's top floor plaque. The next day, Veronica strutted into the cafeteria again. She saw me sitting with my lunchbox and rolled her eyes. "Still bringing that smelly stuff," she said. But before I could even respond, Daniel appeared again. This time, he placed his tray right next to mine. "Mind if I join you again, Amelia?" he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. Veronica's face froze. "Mr. Knight," she stuttered. Everyone's head turned. I looked at her, confused. "You know him," she whispered. "Of course I do," Daniel said casually, smiling. "I'm here for an unannounced audit. Amelia's been kind enough to share her table with me." The entire cafeteria went silent. Veronica's fake smile twitched. "Of course. Welcome, Mr. Knight. We're honored to have you here." He ignored her and turned back to me. "So, what's for lunch today?" he asked warmly. My heart was pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. "It's just lentil soup," I said quietly. He smiled. "My favorite. I grew up eating food like this." Veronica tried to laugh. "Oh, really? That's quaint." He turned to her, his smile fading slightly. "What's quaint about it?" His tone was calm, but there was something dangerous in it. She stammered. "Oh, nothing, sir. I just meant," he interrupted. "You just meant it's not professional enough. I heard about that comment." Her face drained of color. He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Ms. Veronica, do you believe someone's lunch defines their value?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Because if that's how you see your team, maybe you're in the wrong position." The entire room was silent. I sat there, frozen, not knowing whether to smile or cry. Later that afternoon, Veronica was called into a meeting with HR and senior management. The next day, she was reassigned to another branch, a polite way of saying she'd been demoted. The office buzzed with gossip, but no one dared to say anything out loud. As for me, Daniel stopped by my desk that day. "You handled yourself well," he said softly. "Most people would have snapped back, but you didn't. That says something about your character." I smiled nervously. "Thank you, I just didn't want to make things worse." He nodded. "Sometimes silence speaks louder than words." "Now, before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you, if you were me, would you have stayed quiet all those weeks or stood up to her earlier? Because honestly, I still wonder if my silence made me weak or strong. Comment below and tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Anyway, a week later, I got an unexpected email. It was from Daniel's office, an invitation to a private meeting. My hands were shaking when I walked into that top-floor boardroom. The city skyline stretched out behind him like a painting. "Amelia," he said, smiling warmly, "I wanted to talk to you about something." I sat down, still confused. "You've been with the company for 2 years, right?" he asked. I nodded. "I reviewed your work, your reports, your projects. They're exceptional. You've been overlooked because of bad management. That's on us." My jaw almost dropped. I don't know what to say." He smiled. "Say yes to a promotion. I want you to lead the new outreach division." I was speechless. Me, the woman who was mocked for her homemade lunch, was now being offered a leadership position. I accepted, of course, but that wasn't the end. Daniel continued, "And I'd also like to partner with you on something else. You mentioned your family recipes, right? Ever thought about turning that into something bigger?" My heart skipped. "Like a business," he nodded. "A brand, maybe. Healthy homemade meals delivered to offices. Real food for real people." It sounded like a dream. We spent the next few months working together. I'd bring him samples of dishes, and he'd help with the business model. He even insisted the first location be opened near our old office. "A reminder," he said, "that respect tastes better than arrogance." Our little side project turned into a full, fledged company called Heartbite. Within a year, it was featured in magazines. I even got invited to speak at events. Me, the girl who was once too shy to defend her own lunch. One day, during a press conference, a reporter asked what inspired this brand. I looked at Daniel, smiling, and said, "A lunchbox and a lesson in humility." The crowd laughed, not knowing the story behind those words. But he did. Afterward, as we stood together watching the sunset from the rooftop, he said softly, "You've come a long way, Amelia." I smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "You did it yourself. I just noticed what everyone else ignored." From that day on, I promised myself I'd never let anyone make me feel small for being who I am. Veronica's humiliation became my motivation. And Daniel, well, he became more than just a mentor. Over time, our bond deepened. He'd stop by my office just to check on me, or we'd grab coffee after long meetings. It wasn't some movie, like romance at first. It was slow, respectful, genuine, but it was real. A year later, at our company's anniversary gala, Daniel gave a speech. "This company was built on innovation, but also on heart," he said, "and no one embodies that better than Amelia." I felt tears well up as everyone applauded. When the event ended, he pulled me aside and handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver lunch box with our logo engraved on it. "Never stop bringing your own food," he said with a wink. "It's what started everything." Sometimes I think about that moment in the cafeteria, the laughter, the shame, the sting of Veronica's words. But now I just smile, because if she hadn't mocked me, maybe Daniel never would have noticed me. Maybe Heartbite wouldn't exist. Maybe I'd still be sitting quietly at that corner table, hiding my little lunchbox. Funny how life works, isn't it? So here's the moral I learned. People will always judge you for being different, but those judgments say more about them than they do about you. Never be ashamed of where you come from, what you eat, or how you live, because sometimes the very thing they mock you for becomes your greatest strength. If you were on my side through this story, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs a reminder to stay proud of who they are, and subscribe for more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if your boss humiliated you like that in front of everyone? I'll see you all in the next story.